Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope you've had a great Wednesday. Hope you're having a great week so far. Hope you guys are staying safe in places like Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee and surrounding areas as there's ongoing severe weather right now. Luckily, I do not think this is really gearing up to be maybe as bad as it could have been. So we will hope that it keeps verifying that way. But as of right now, I haven't seen really any reports of any tornadoes or anything like that. I've seen a lot of pictures on social media of wall clouds, which are basically lowering of cloud bases, which sometimes is the beginning of a tornado, but I have not seen any videos, any reports of any tornadoes as of right now, as of around 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. But we are getting into the overnight hours, so it's much harder to see things, and we really don't know until it hits. So let's continue to hope for the best and pray for the best with these situations. This severe weather will continue to move into Alabama, places of Georgia, Atlanta. So that's what we're going to discuss in this video. We're going to discuss what's going to continue to happen overnight with the severe weather, what's going to happen tomorrow, because I think tomorrow is going to be an underrated severe weather event also for portions of Georgia and the Carolinas. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the big system for New Year's Eve into New Year's. I'm talking about a winter storm, the possibility of a multi-day severe weather event, and yes, maybe some snow for areas in the further south regions like Tennessee, heck, maybe even northern Alabama and Mississippi, and definitely the Appalachian Mountains could definitely see some snow. We'll talk about that in this video. So we're really going to go from the now to the most future event, which would be that major winter storm. So we're going to run through everything. It's going to probably be one of my longest videos ever. So stay tuned if you really want to know what's going on and what looks to be a very active end to this year and an active start to 2022. So if you guys have not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Help the video get out there by liking the video if you like it. I appreciate all the amazing support and the growth over the last several days. I'm on a mission to get to 10K. It was by the end of the year, but I only got a couple more days before I reach that. But I'm just a guy that loves the weather and loves sharing what I love to others and to help others and things like that. And I'm also a storm chaser, so I try to get out there in the nitty-gritty of things when I can. It's obviously not something I do full-time, but guys, I would love to be able to do what I do right now full-time, and that is the ultimate goal here in the future. But let's get going. Long video, a lot to discuss. Stick with me with this if you're interested to do so. And I appreciate all the amazing support as usual. So right now, still an enhanced risk for this area. This got upgraded earlier today. Still a 10% chance. This will probably trim down, especially from the west. And I think that it might get dropped, but I think if they do keep it here in the next few hours, it might get dropped to a 5% chance or just a smaller area of a 10% chance of a tornado, 25 miles in any given location. Still wind threat, big time wind threat, honestly, because this line of storms, and I'll show you what's going on right at this moment. No tornado warnings currently. Severe thunderstorm warnings here in basically in eastern areas of Mississippi, Columbus, Mississippi, getting into Alabama. There's some storms down here that you're not seeing on radar because it's out of the radar vision of the Huntsville National Weather Service radar. But there's some storms down here developing that we got to watch. That really can move into the Birmingham area, ultimately move into Georgia, maybe close to Atlanta later overnight. The severe weather threat will be going on overnight, and there's definitely could be some straight line damaging wind gusts with these storms starting to enter Huntsville right now and as they continue to get closer to Chattanooga. But this is definitely a risk, as far as what's going on with tornado watches right now. You have this little area that's probably going to expire here in the next well, I guess in y'all's time it'll probably be in the next still about 30 minutes. So it looks like the threat of tornadoes will begin to diminish in Mississippi. But if you look in Alabama, there is still a tornado watch till 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. This actually got extended a little further south to include Tuscaloosa and places like that. Birmingham not currently included in this tornado watch, but this could definitely shift more east in time. But it's all because you got to watch these little storms down here. There's plenty of juice to the atmosphere, even though the suns don't went down. Plenty of low-level moisture. And there's, like I said, just some oomph to the atmosphere that really can keep these storms spinning out there, and you got to watch out because I really think that these storms could really continue to trail into Atlanta and areas of Georgia a little bit later. So if we look at the current HRRR model, the latest one, and it's verifying okay. I don't think it's as crazy it's showing these storms down here really getting crazy, and they could, but this is around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so around 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Nasty weather starting to move into Birmingham and places like that. You continue to watch this line as it gets into about midnight Eastern Standard Time, so 11 p.m. or so, give and take. Don't take these hours for exact hours, but give and take an hour. You're getting some nasty weather moving in around midnight into the Atlanta area. This might wake you guys up. This is a nasty line of storms. This will continue to move through as we get into 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. The storms begin to shear out a little bit, but still some nasty storms still erupting here. Here in Alabama and maybe even Mississippi. I think these definitely lose their tornado threat here, but still the potential for some damaging winds and heavy rain, maybe some hail with these storms continue to fire up here in the deep south. And then you get some rain that moves into the upstate and storms. And then potentially tomorrow, and we'll talk about this in here in a second, these storms will continue to refire into the late morning hours to the early afternoon hours. You get into Georgia and South Carolina and potentially North Carolina later on tomorrow. So really what's juicing up this tornado threat is a low-level jet right in here at about 30 to 40 knots. And this is why there's been an enhanced risk in this area. There's basically a surface low that's moving through the Tennessee Valley here. And just south of that, you have basically a stalled boundary here. This creates veering of winds, which is basically shifting in winds just above our heads here in the lowest levels of the atmosphere. And then there's just changing in directions in the atmosphere, meaning it's putting a spin to the atmosphere. So an enhanced tornado threat is going on right here. But I really think, and I wouldn't want to say this and all of a sudden everybody gets their guard down, but I think the tornado threat can continue, and it can definitely ramp up here in the next couple hours. But I don't think there's a lot of supercells discreting themselves in this system like it could have happened. So still watch out, especially in northern and central Alabama here in the coming hours, and then maybe in Georgia as a low-level jet moves ahead, can put a spin to the atmosphere. Then this low-level jet moves over South Carolina tomorrow, and I think some of these storms could produce potentially maybe some weak tornadoes, maybe a weak tornado, maybe two, who knows. But as far as the updraft helicity, this basically tells us where there can be a rotating updraft, where there could be a tornado. Notice as we're getting into the overnight hours, let's make it a run down here. And we're getting overnight hours, this maxes out. It's showing it starts to max out as we get into around 11 p.m., midnight, as these storms that you can't really see down here, but look, you got a new tornado warning showing up right in this area too. So don't get your guard down, guys. This is well northwest of Birmingham, so you still got tornado warnings popping off here. You got one popping off here, just west of Winfield. So if you're in Winfield, take cover just to be safe. I don't know if there's anything confirmed, but be careful with that. But that's what I'm saying. You're going to have tornado warnings occasionally popping up with this line, probably all night long. And this shows it up here, the updraft helicity, showing it up very well in that same area. It's what's crazy here. Maybe a little bit further north on here. But you got to watch out. Any supercells that develop here in Mississippi and move into Alabama overnight, they could have a tornado threat to them, especially Birmingham, point south, and then right near the low-level jet, there could be a tornado risk. And these, one, are going to be probably rain-wrapped, and two, even if they weren't rain-wrapped, you're not going to see them because this is going to happen overnight. So don't get your guard down in these areas at all. And then, you see it getting into Georgia, just south of Atlanta, as you're getting into the early morning hours. Into Georgia. So I think there will be some spin to these storms even tomorrow morning. Now, speaking of tomorrow, you're going to have a marginal risk at place. I would not be surprised one bit if somewhere upgrades to a slight risk, which is level 2 out of 5 by the time we wake up in the mornings. Right now, a 2% chance of a tornado of 25 miles in any given location in this dark green area. This could get upgraded. I really think it could. Maybe for a small slither of an area in Georgia and South Carolina, if I had to predict anywhere. So watch out for severe weather. Definitely did not mean to have two of those screens pulled up. But the reason you got to watch out here is if you're moving here in time, these storms will keep moving tomorrow. We're getting into tomorrow morning. Some storms could be, pretty much already ongoing here in Atlanta, through the upstate of South Carolina, even in the Midlands of South Carolina. But as you're going here in time, some morning convection gets out the way, and then maybe some more storms fire up here around the low-level jet. And this is why these storms into the Carolinas could have a little bit of spin to them. And then some storms could erupt in North Carolina and Southern Virginia too. We get a little bit closer look to these guys right here as I get down to my 18Z run. And we're going through here in time. And this gets into the morning hours. This is tomorrow morning. Nasty weather already moving through. These may not be severe. They could. But it's really these storms that come into the afternoon hours here around South Carolina, Georgia. These could prompt some tornado warnings and maybe a brief weak tornado in the Carolinas and areas of Georgia. All these have little hooks to them. You got to watch out. That low-level jet's going to be flying through, even though it's going to be weakening to probably a 30-knot low-level jet. There's still going to be some spin to the atmosphere with these storms, definitely. So, as we're going forward here, there is another storm we need to watch out for. So the next storm we're really going to talk about is this New Year's storm, which has the potential to be a much more dynamic storm because you're going to be talking about severe weather, the potential for a snowstorm. It could be a much more significant severe weather event. And the snowstorm part of the storm, it could also be very significant for areas of Chicago. I'm not saying there's going to be a blizzard or anything, but places like Chicago, I'm mentioning them because they're the first big city that comes to mind. They're not just going to have snow, with several inches of snow, but the potential for strong winds too that could really, briefly have some blizzard conditions with this. So moving forward here, you got the 500 millibar jet here. Big time trough injection goes on here, picks up a surface low in Baja, California, injects it, overlaps it, got a lot of vortice energy here. And just a dynamic system with a lot of wind energy that's going to bring in a major pattern change. It's, here, for example, I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. It's going to probably go from the 70s Sunday to the 40s Monday for highs. And that's not just for us. It's going to be like that for a lot of people across the deep South and mid-South and eastern U.S. So big time trough injection. So that's why with this, you have already a slight risk at day 3. This has a chance to get upgraded and already a slight risk of severe weather at day 3. 15% chance of severe weather and 25 miles at any given location. Same situation as the event a couple days ago, which introduced a slight risk pretty early on. And not just for this either. You go to day 4 and 5, and there is at day 4 a risk for thunderstorms, which tomorrow this will probably get introduced to a slight risk also, because this is about what this is equivalent to at day 4 is a slight risk at day 4. And this risk has been here since day 7, I believe. So we've been watching this major trough injection for a while now, and this is likely going to bring severe weather New Year's Day. This event for day 3 is New Year's Eve that could potentially bring severe weather as this trough injection picks up the surface trough, starts flying over the south-central U.S., and begins to inject into the Tennessee Valley or the Ohio Valley. Now, the strength of this and the location of this really is going to be the determination of how big of a tornado threat this is going to be. If it's way north, then the tornado threat probably down here deep south will probably not be as high as we get into New Year's Day. And I'll show you all that, what I mean here. This is the latest GFS, and this is the event going on right here. This gets on here, and here comes our big system, Arctic high moving in, Arctic front on the move, and it shows the low pressure a little bit more south than it did, say, 3 runs ago, where it had it a lot further north. Now it's slowed the system down, and it's a little bit more south. But normally when you have a moving Arctic air mass, you have more of a linear type setup. That would be good news for a tornado threat, as it would limit that, but it would be bad news because then you would have a big time damaging line of storms as far as strong winds. So there's a lot of elements that go into this, and there is still, even though we're getting rather close to this event, there is still a lot of things we need to figure out with this storm. And even the Storm Prediction Center is, I wouldn't say struggling because of the professionals, but they're definitely questioning the strength of this surface low that rides this jet stream, and they're questioning how strong it's going to be. So it's a big time question here. But what we do know is there's going to be a very broad low level jet at 850 here. So that means there's going to be a spin to the atmosphere along with the powerful 500 millibar jet stream here, jet flying here. So the 850 low level jet, which is what you need for directional shear to promote a tornadic environment, is going to be here. We're looking, for example, we'll back it up here because I don't want to forget about New Year's Eve. We look at Friday afternoon. This is when everybody's preparing to bring in the new year. Well, you have a 40 to 50 knot jet shooting over areas of Arkansas and surrounding states. It's going to already promote a severe weather event in this area, and that is why you have your slight risk for this area. One thing you can always look, even if you don't know a lot about weather, go into the 850 millibar heights and winds. That's your low level jet. That's basically the wind screaming about 4,000 to 5,000 feet up in the air. Figure out where that is, and that's a lot of times, if you have a moist sector and a warm sector, a lot of times that's where it's going to be, and you got enough cape, that's where it's going to be your tornado threat. So you have that in place. This moves over, and then the energy just in general shifts more east and southeast, and then you have a much more broad low-level jet shooting over the deep south and mid-south, a 50 to 60 knot jet. This is screaming a tornado threat, or just a damaging a damaging line of winds as far as strong winds shooting across the south. This is what this screams to me all over, is some type of damaging wind threat, whether it be from tornadoes or either just strong winds from a line of storms. There's a ton of energy with this, with such a strong trough injection right here. And this even gets into the Carolinas, as I think we're getting into overnight Saturday into Sunday. You might get a line of storms that screamed through the Carolinas and Georgia and Virginia, and then behind it, very cold air ushers in. So you have the upper level pattern in place for at least a lot of wind energy. But if you look at the system as precipitation wise, you're looking for Friday evening, which is New Year's evening. You're thinking, where's the precipitation? That slight risk. Well, the area is probably going to be a little capped, so it's going to be interesting to see when these storms really develop New Year's Eve, if it's more of a morning threat or late evening threat. But as we're getting into Saturday, which is New Year's Day, and look at all these storms firing up here, and look at all this snow just north of the low pressure where cold air is, and the snowstorm moving into Boston, which is what we're about to talk about here in a second. But this is down here just south and around this low pressure, the surface trough. This is where you watch out for severe weather. So we got to watch out and see what's going to happen here. But as far as dew points, there's high-end moisture from now all the way through Sunday before the Arctic air mass moves in with a dry dew point and sweeps out and basically flushes out the atmosphere with dry air and kills all the humidity for the time being at least. But you have plenty of moisture to deal with for New Year's Eve. Big time expansive moist sector getting all the way into the Ohio Valley. Plenty of low-level moisture to tap into this moist sector. The Cape's going to be there as it spikes again as you get into Friday, and then especially into Saturday temporarily as more favorable dynamics get in place. You have plenty of convective energy here in place. But, if you also look at the energy helicity index here, normally when you have values, let me get this going here. Normally you have values like this above 2 or 3. That's normally depicting an environment that's favorable for tornadoes in this area. So I also want to stop this video really quick because I'm being told that this area right here may have a tornado on the ground. There's a storm chaser very known throughout the weather community that says they saw power flashes around this tornado-warned storm. And if you look at the velocity here, you can definitely see it showing up right here. As you can see the two-tone different colors right here, that tells us that there's probably some kind of strong couplet right here, and there could potentially be a tornado on the ground. Whatever caused the power flashes was likely a quick touchdown of a tornado. So if you're around the Winfield area or just east of it, definitely watch out here, because this might be a situation where this continues to travel east and affect areas out in front of it. So be careful if you're in those areas for sure, guys. So let's focus on the snow side of this. A lot of people are talking about this. I want to mention here that going forward here, let's look at the GFS. As you get to this system out the way, and hopefully we make it through the night without any injuries or deaths or anything like that in this system. This does not get ramped up overnight or anything like that. But moving forward here, there's going to be a threat of a big-time winter storm across areas of the Midwest, and that includes Chicago, maybe Detroit. This would be the first significant winter storm for you guys this year by far. So the cold side of the storm looks to bring a big-time winter storm. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, it's been wanting to show this crazy scenario where you basically get an expansive shield westward that promotes more backside snow all the way into North Alabama, into Tennessee, Kentucky, all the southern Appalachian Mountains. But if you look at the run prior, it's more of just a northwest flow event with maybe some flurries as far south as North Georgia or North Alabama. Look at the run prior to that, it's a little bit more snowier. The run prior to that, it's just a northwest flow event. The run prior to that, northwest flow event. So the GFS is jumping all over. It doesn't know what it quite wants to do, but I'll tell you, the latest GFS shows a very snowy scenario for areas of the Mid-South. Not very as in several inches, but some light snow behind this severe weather threat, and shows some very heavy snow for at least briefly for areas like Washington, D.C., and maybe a quick hitting a moderate snow event for the big cities around the I-95 corridor heading north. So it's something to watch out for sure. And you look at the European, it's definitely different. It shows the big-time winter storm for Chicago, probably not near as much snow as the GFS is showing, just because the European has a little bit more warm, is a little bit more warm with the storm in general. But you notice all it shows is basically northwest flow snow here for the mountains. None of that crazy snow that the GFS is showing. So I will mention, right now, there is a high probability of a winter storm for areas like Chicago. Narrow it down to a little bit better resolution right here. There is right now 50 to 70% chance of winter, basically liquid equivalent of snow and sleet exceeding 1/4 inch, which depending on how cold it is, that could be a few inches of snow, several inches of snow. Just really depends on what the snow quality is, if you will, and what the ratio is it 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 5 to 1? Really depends on how wet the snow is falling. But you know, if you look further south, for Monday, there is a small slither for the Appalachian Mountains. This includes almost Knoxville, but Gatlinburg, not close to Asheville, but basically just a spine of the southern Appalachian Mountains. A couple days ago, this showed a pretty broad area of green everywhere, and this would be a 10 to 30% chance of, like I said, 1/4 inch of liquid equivalent to snow and sleet. So there is a little bit of a signal here. If you look at the operational GFS, it depicts that snowfall for that backside snow, maybe an inch or two in the Tennessee Plateau. But, you look at the big-time event for Chicago, though. I mean, that's several inches of snow. Some models won't get close to a foot. But it does show a jackpot area moving right through Chicago and then just north of Detroit into southern areas of Michigan. As far as snowfall for the European, it shows a nice snow even for Chicago. 8 inches of snow, and then northern Illinois, a nice stripe of some heavier snow. But if you're looking for the event down south, it doesn't really show anything. You look at the ensembles for the European run, solid ensemble for a nice snowstorm across the Midwest into Chicago, but not a very strong signal for that southern event. The same thing with the European, strong signal up top, several inches of snow for Chicago, but a little bit better of a scenario here in the GEFS ensembles for some snow. But we'll see how it goes, guys. I will tell you one thing. This is going to be a major pattern change How long is it going to last is, I think, the bigger question. But look at this cold front digging down here. For example, Dallas Saturday could soar into the 70s, and then maybe only the 30s to around 40 degrees for highs on Sunday in Dallas. Same thing with the Mid-South. They're going to be dealing with the severe weather threats and warm temperatures into the 70s and 80s on Saturday. By the time it's Sunday, temperatures maybe only get as high as the 30s. And then same thing for the Carolinas. 70s for highs potentially Sunday. By the time it gets into Monday, maybe only 40s for highs. So how long does this pattern stick in? Well, I'm not sure, but I think it warms back up the latter part of next week, and then maybe another Arctic front moves through. Can we get some snow sometime soon? I hope so, guys. But that's all I got. Longest video I've made in a long time. Ongoing severe weather threat right now. Still a strong signal for a tornado, and now just east of Winfield. Could be a tornado on the ground. So stay safe out there, especially Alabama right at this current moment. God bless all y'all, and have a good night.